6:30 p.m. only on DD India.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Midday Prime. I'm Gautam Roy. Over the next 1 hour, we'll bring you up to speed with all that is going on in the country and the rest of the world as well. Topmost, of course, being the government's efforts to bring back those who want to get away from the situation that the world is confronted with in Afghanistan. The government has decided to brief political parties about it as well. Representatives of political parties will get to the latest on that. And also, what's the latest on the bid to get a caste-based census going in the country as well? A delegation of various political party leaders have also met Prime Minister Modi about this. We'll tell you about that as well. But first, the big news of the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi instructs Ministry of External Affairs to brief floor leaders of political parties on Afghanistan developments. Airlifted Indian nationals from crisis-ridden Afghanistan. Second batch of 146 Indian nationals who were evacuated from Afghanistan to Doha repatriated. Multi-party delegation on caste census led by Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar meets Prime Minister Modi. The Bihar CM says Prime Minister Modi has given a patient hearing to the delegation. The nation's war against COVID-19 continues. Cumulative COVID-19 vaccination doses cross 58 crore mark. Classes from 9 to 12 standards to open up in Karnataka. Tamil Nadu announces relaxations in COVID-19 curbs. Theatres to open with 50% capacity. Goa extends COVID-induced curfew till the 30th of August. Last rites of veteran leader and former Chief Minister Kalyan Singh to be performed on the banks of the Ganga in Naroda today. Public holiday to be observed in Uttar Pradesh. US orders civilian jets to join evacuation from Afghanistan. Biden says maintaining constant vigil to monitor and disrupt threats from any source, including ISIS and Afghan affiliate ISIS-K. UK Prime Minister calls emergency meeting of G7 countries tomorrow. Prime Minister Modi congratulates junior wrestling team and athletics team for bringing back laurels. Says athletics is gaining popularity across India and this is a great sign for the times to come. Well, first up, the big news of the hour. Well, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar in a tweet has said, and I quote, "In view of developments in Afghanistan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has instructed that MEA brief floor leaders of political parties. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs Prahlad Joshi will be intimating further details." Now, to give this context, what happened on the 17th of August, where Prime Minister Modi had chaired a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security in which India's ambassador to Afghanistan, Rudrendra Tandon, among those evacuated from Kabul, was also present. The CCS meeting was attended by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, Home Minister Amit Shah, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Gauba, Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, and senior officials. Since then, evacuations have been on. Over the last 2 days, nearly 500 people have been evacuated directly from Kabul as well as via other countries. This will be the first such briefing since the monsoon session in Parliament ended. And the Government of India also continues to bring Indians back from Afghanistan as well. Second batch of 146 Indian nationals who were evacuated from Afghanistan to Doha have been repatriated to India. Let's hear some of the reactions of Indians evacuated from the war-torn country who arrived in Delhi airport.
अभी का माहौल बहुत ख़राब है। पहले जो जिस टाइम हम वहाँ से निकल गए थे उस टाइम सही था। इंडिया सरकार ने भी हमारी हेल्प करी है, क्योंकि यहाँ से कतर से इन्होंने यहाँ से बातचीत करके हमें वहाँ से निकाला है।
उधर का नागरिक पहले से तालिबान से बहुत डरता है, क्योंकि पहले उन लोग तालिबान से रह चुका है। उन लोगों का व्यवहार, उन लोगों का रूल रेगुलेशन उन लोगों को अच्छी तरह मालूम है। तालिबान अभी सीधा बात बोल दिया, हम लोग आ गया, रोड में किसी को देखना नहीं मांगता है, घर से बाहर किसी को नहीं मानता है।
An even earlier special repatriation flight by the Indian Air Force carrying 168 passengers landed on Sunday morning at the Indian Air Base near Delhi from Kabul. India has been reportedly allowed to operate 2 flights per day from Kabul to evacuate its nationals stranded in Afghanistan. The permission was granted by American and North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that's NATO forces, which have been controlling operations of the Hamid Karzai International Airport after the Afghan capital fell to the Taliban on the 15th of August. Now, Maninder Singh Sirsa, the president of Delhi Sikh Gurdwara Management Committee, has thanked Prime Minister Modi and his government for assisting in the return of 3 holy swarups of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji as well as 46 Indian passport holders from Kabul later today. Another 75 Sikhs are being evacuated today from Kabul via the Shangbeh and will arrive in India late by tonight.
अफगानिस्तान से गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब महाराज जी के 3 पावन स्वरूप और 46 अफगानिस्तान के रेजिडेंट हिंदू और सिख भाई जो हमारे हैं उनको इवैक्यूएट किया जा रहा है भारत सरकार के द्वारा। मैं धन्यवाद करता हूं देश के प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी का, सारी सरकार का, जो गुरु ग्रंथ साहिब महाराज जी के पावन स्वरूप वहां से बाहर निकालकर भारत लाए जा रहे हैं। मैं फिर से एक बार अपने भाइयों का यहां पहुंचने पर स्वागत भी करता हूं और धन्यवाद करता हूं भारत की सरकार का, भारत के प्रधानमंत्री जी का, और उम्मीद करते हैं कि जो हमारे बाकी लोग रह गए हैं वो भी 1-2 दिन के अंदर अंदर सेफली भारत लौट आएंगे।
So multiple efforts are on to ensure those who want to return home, stuck in Afghanistan, back home to India, are brought back, and at the same time the process to ensure that a stable Afghanistan emerges, that is also being contributed to by India, and that's what might be the content of the briefing that the MEA perhaps will hold tomorrow. But let's find out more about it and have it given some context as well. Amrit Pal Singh, my colleague, is joining us now. Amrit, what can you tell us about this meeting first off, which the Prime Minister has instructed the MEA to hold and brief floor leaders of the various political parties? Amrit, first off, what can you tell us about this meeting that the PM has instructed the MEA to hold with floor leaders of different political parties? What could be the content of that? Because right now the biggest concern is about all those Indians who are stuck in Afghanistan. Some of them have been brought back. There are more who are waiting to be brought back to India. We seem to be unable to contact Amrit Pal for the moment, but we'll try and return to him as and when we can. For the moment, we're moving on. And to talk about some of the international developments related to Afghanistan, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has called a virtual G7 leaders meeting on Tuesday to discuss the crisis in Afghanistan, and he's urged governments to find ways to prevent conditions from getting worse. If you look at Twitter, what Boris Johnson has said, he said it is vital that the international community works together to ensure safe evacuations, prevent a humanitarian crisis and support the Afghan people to secure the gains of the last 20 years. Britain holds the rotating leadership of the G7, which also includes the US, Italy, France, Germany, Japan as well as Canada. Okay, I believe that Amrit Pal is with us, and we're trying to give context to the meeting A that has been called by at the behest of the Prime Minister's office, and the MEA will be convening it, where floor leaders of various political parties will be briefed about the government's efforts related to the situation in Afghanistan and, of course, the ongoing evacuation efforts. Clearly, Amrit Pal, these two have an intrinsic link here.
Yes, they do. Gautam, basically what is happening is that the government is trying to reach out to the political parties, putting out what their view and their assessment on Afghanistan is. If you remember, on the 17th, the CCS was held, chaired by the Prime Minister, in which the other CCS members like the Defence Minister, the Home Minister, the Finance Minister were there. External Affairs Dr. Jaishankar was travelling to New York, therefore he could not attend, where the Foreign Secretary along with the Ambassador who had just returned from Kabul that very day had briefed the Cabinet Committee on Security about what the situation in Afghanistan is and what their understanding is. Now at this stage, India would be waiting and watching as to what the contours of the next government that's installed in Afghanistan are. Would it be an inclusive government? What would be the representation of the minorities, of the Uzbeks, of the Tajiks, etc., of women, what the position of the Taliban who are expected to lead this government would be. So based on all that and based on Indian interests, the government would be taking a decision on what should be the future course of action as far as establishing diplomatic ties with a Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. The last time around, if you remember, the government had not recognized Taliban and had not had any diplomatic relations with the Taliban government in the 1990s. Now, will the government do something different from the last time? All that assessment, I think the government is trying to share with the political parties and give them the broad contours of how they view the situation in Afghanistan and what steps they are taking. Also, they are taking into confidence the opposition so that on this important foreign policy issue, there is a national consensus, and India does not speak in different voices, because some voices from the opposition had emanated where they had said that the government should consult us on what they want to do next in Afghanistan and what really are they doing about the Indians in Afghanistan. So I think the government, one, would be sharing what it's doing, its policy on allowing Afghan nationals to come to India, especially the minorities like the Hindus and Sikhs, those who wish to. So the government would be explaining that policy, the present policy, and what its outlook for the future is. And that's why it's reaching to the floor leaders of the political parties.
Right. And, you know, in terms of, Amrit, the kind of shape and form the next government in Afghanistan, which is going to emerge out of this Taliban takeover, there is clearly an effort at the global level. Perhaps G7 meeting would have something, you know, to do with it as well. The kind of shape and form that government takes now, what is the Indian government's take on that? Is there any bid to influence that as well from within India by the Indian government, as some of the other Western powers do?
I think what the Indians are doing right now is they are waiting and assessing the situation, because you know, though we were present at the Doha talks as observers and special invitees, and India's got vital interests in Afghanistan, or what happens in Afghanistan, what sort of a government Afghanistan gets, it will surely have a bearing on the region, and therefore India would be concerned. But then India has limited traction when it comes to the decision of the formation of the government there. It is primarily a process which the Afghans have to work out amongst themselves. There are various, you know, international associations, or the international community is trying to help them or nudge them towards. There is the Doha talks, there is the Moscow format, there is the Istanbul conference, there used to be a Bonn dialogue. So there is a SCO, Foreign Ministers Group. So there are various stakeholders at the international level. India has always maintained that it should be an Afghan-owned, Afghan-led process, but which should be inclusive, and which should be modern, and which should be forward-looking and progressive. So India would want an inclusive and a representative government to be in place in Kabul, which has minorities, the ones that I mentioned, as part of it, or as stakeholders. It should have equitable distribution of power in terms of regions, in terms of tribes.
Yes.
You know, women should play an important role.
Yes, there is the resistance to consider as well. And apart from that, you know, there are ample indications now that the US wants to wind up its evacuation by the end of this month. And right now the airport is also functioning under the NATO forces, primarily US forces, and we have a certain quota for taking out people. So the number of people that we have, is there any assessment, and whether we will be able to do that, evacuate our people within that time frame?
I think they have an assessment of the Indians who are there. There are about close to about 300, 350 Indians said to be in Afghanistan. As far as Afghans who are the minorities there, because the government has said that if they wish to come to India and apply to come to India, India would be open to that. Now, there are a lot of problems, like the Afghans who came yesterday said that the Taliban is not allowing them to go out of Afghanistan, saying that, you are Afghan, stay back, what is your problem, we'll take care of you. So they're not encouraging them to get out of Afghanistan, in fact, in creating hurdles for them. Now, that is a call that the Sikhs and the Hindus of Afghanistan have to take as to where do they want to live, depending upon how secure they feel in Afghanistan. But India has made its policy clear. So those numbers are not very clear, because it's not clear as to how many of them want to come, can they come, because the Indians would not want to we do not have military on the ground, unlike the Americans. So if the Taliban stop them, there is no military intervention that we can do and say, don't stop them and we want to get them back. So I think the Indians' policy is apply, we'll give you a visa, come here, and we are ready to take you in, and you can stay as long as you want. So or till the humanitarian crisis is over there. So I think they don't have the exact number. They have a broad idea of the numbers of the total Afghan Hindus and Sikhs there, but not as many. How many of them want to come here? Because remember, Gautam, not everybody wants to come to India out of these minorities also. Many of them have openly said they would rather want to get out into the United States or Canada or Western countries. So it's their decision. So the government knows the number of Indians and has a broad idea that how many Afghans of these communities are there.
So perhaps we'll get a better idea of things once that briefing happens and leaders are told about what the plans are regarding this particular category of people who might be wanting to come to India. Thanks a lot for the perspective on the entire situation right now, Amrit Singh. Alright, meanwhile, thousands of Afghans, including many who helped the US military in the war, continue to crowd outside Kabul's airport, risking beatings by Taliban fighters. A video released by Afghan-based news agency shows Afghans still waiting to get evacuated at the Kabul airport while gunshots were heard in the distance. It further stated that the Taliban fighters are beating back thousands desperate to flee right outside Kabul airport on Sunday. According to witnesses, no major injuries were reported in this particular incident. Meanwhile, the Taliban have said hundreds of fighters are heading to the Panjshir Valley after talks with leaders of the resistance broke down on Sunday. This information was given out by the group on its Arabic Twitter account. Panjshir Valley is currently the center of the resistance in war-ravaged Afghanistan. Now, evacuations from Afghanistan continue in full swing. Thousands from Kabul have been evacuated, but the process remains chaotic. Partner network Voice of America's Aisha Tanzim was stuck at Kabul's international airport for days. In this video, which was shot on her cell phone, she explains that the biggest difficulty right now for those wishing to leave Afghanistan is getting inside the airport.
Desperate people trying to escape the Taliban's Afghanistan. At Kabul's international airport, the lines are long and more are coming every day. With thousands gathered outside, packing the entrances, getting inside the airport is an ordeal.
We are in trouble. See my clothes, see all my clothes and my feet. It's very trouble. There is Taliban and there is American. No one hear about me. I show my all documents, but no one take care. After that, when I fell down with my mom, the American security take us and we get inside.
They are hungry and thirsty from their hours, sometimes days-long ordeal. In the chaos, loved ones have been separated from each other.
Right now here and all my little brother have earth problem. So I'm not going anywhere without them. So I wish that US troops bring my family for me.
Among the crowd, little children, seemingly oblivious to the uncertainty their families were facing. Western nations are trying to evacuate Afghans who work with them with their families. But many are without proper documents, making entry to the airport more difficult.
My family is for outside and not paperless help for my family coming. This is very...
Is your family outside the airport?
Yeah, my family was outside. I have no paperless and American people help for me. I coming to for my family. This is my badge and this is my badge. ISAF, this is my ISAF badge.
What city?
And Kabul city.
Okay.
And this is from my card. This is Paktika.
Others have managed to make it inside the airport but have no passports. Their future is uncertain.
I want to go to a foreign country. I have no passport, only my ID card. What should I do?
As families wait for their turn to board a plane, kids find ways to pass time. Planes flying overhead providing some entertainment.
It's a tough situation out there, especially for women and children. Now, Turkey, which already hosts more than 4.5 million refugees, began enforcing the security measures along its border in recent months and has been raising concerns of a new migrant wave. Security forces watch for any movement on the Iranian side, and patrol cars drive around the clock along the border where migrant smugglers and Kurdish militants frequently try to cross into Turkey. The use of helicopters and night vision goggles reflect how determined they are to avoid another influx of refugees and migrants. And the US on Sunday enlisted several major American airlines in its chaotic evacuation of tens of thousands of Afghans and foreigners from Kabul following its fall to the Taliban. The Pentagon said Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin had activated the rarely used Civil Reserve Air Fleet to aid the onward movement of people arriving at US bases in the Middle East. 18 civilian craft from American Airlines, Atlas, Delta, Omni, Hawaiian and United will be aiding dozens of military cargo transports involved in the evacuation. That's what the statement put across. Rather than going in and out of the capital, the planes will transport people from US bases in Qatar, Bahrain and other United Arab Emirates to European countries and for many onward to the US. With thousands of troops trying to secure Kabul's airport, Washington has set a deadline to complete one of the largest evacuation missions the Pentagon has ever conducted by the 31st of this month. Up to 15,000 Americans need to be removed from Afghanistan, according to President Joe Biden, who says the administration wants to get at least 50,000 Afghan allies and their family members out of the country as well. We're taking a quick break at the moment. Be back with more of the latest. There is still more information coming on Afghanistan. Stay with Midday Prime.
Namaste India.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Mui
Nous
India.
sommes land.
Nahnu hunud India. Ma Hindi hasti. Hum Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Welcome back. You're watching Midday Prime. Let's move on and get you more updates on the situation in Taliban, where the US has an unwavering commitment to get US citizen and at-risk Afghans to safety out of Afghanistan. In a televised address from the White House, US President Joe Biden reiterated that any American who wants to get home will get home despite a rushed US withdrawal. The US has evacuated nearly 28,000 people from Afghanistan since the 14th of August, including around 11,000 people in about 36 hours over the weekend.
Every day we have troops on the ground. These troops and innocent civilians at the airport face the risk of attack from ISIS-K from a distance, even though we're moving back the perimeter significantly. We're working hard and as fast as we can to get people out. That's our mission. That's our goal. And our determination to get every American citizen home and to evacuate our Afghan allies is unwavering.
The US President further said that the security situation in Afghanistan was changing rapidly and his administration was under no illusions about the threat from Islamic State militants in Afghanistan known as ISIS-K. He warned that the evacuation of thousands from Kabul is going to be hard and painful.
Let me be clear. The evacuation of thousands of people from Kabul is going to be hard and painful, no matter when it started, when we began. It would have been true if we had started a month ago or a month from now. There is no way to evacuate this many people without pain and loss of heartbreaking images you see on television. It's just a fact. My heart aches for those people you see. We are proving that we can move those thousands of people a day out of Kabul. We're bringing our citizens, NATO allies, Afghanis who in fact has helped us in the war effort, but we have a long way to go.
The Biden administration has made a number of changes to the evacuation efforts, including extended access around the airport and the safe zone. This move is to push back Taliban fighters and lessen deadly chaos around the airport gates. Meanwhile, the White House said that Afghanistan would be the chief topic of discussion when Biden and G7 leaders meet virtually on Tuesday. Now, Australia's government is under mounting pressure to expedite the rescue of Australians and Afghans who worked for the country during its two-decade-long involvement in Afghanistan. Australia has evacuated about 1,000 citizens and Afghans from Kabul in the past week, and Australia would be willing to support further rescue flights as well. That's what they've indicated.
50 people we've been able to evacuate overnight. That brings to over 1,000 people, together with the United Kingdom, we've been able to evacuate over the course of these operations. And I want to note that that includes not only Australians, but it includes a large number of Afghan locally engaged employees and humanitarian visa holders that we've been able to get out of the country. In addition to that, there are many women and children that we've been able to get out of Afghanistan in what has been some of the most extreme conditions our people have ever operated in, if not worse.
And Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne said Australia is willing to assist with evacuations from Afghanistan after the 31st of August as well, if the US decides to delay its withdrawal. US President Joe Biden last week said US troops may stay in Afghanistan past the 31st of August deadline to evacuate Americans.
In the last 24 hours, we have evacuated over 450 people from Kabul on those 4 ADF flights, including Australian and New Zealand citizens, UK evacuees, Afghan locally engaged employees and visa holders. And since the 18th of August, that total is over 1,000 people.
And US soldiers have set up over 70 military tents at Germany's Ramstein Air Base as they prepare to shelter up to 10,000 evacuees from Afghanistan. The current capacity of the air base is 5,000 people, but it is meant to serve as a temporary location for up to 10,000. Video released by US Department of Defense showed US soldiers at the base providing assistance to Afghan families who have to undergo a 3-day quarantine in accordance with anti-COVID-19 measures after the first medical examination. The US, as well as other countries including Germany, Britain or Spain, are desperately trying to evacuate thousands of people from Afghanistan as reports of Taliban reprisals against Afghans who worked with Western-led forces increase. The German military has already airlifted about 2,000 people out of Kabul airport. And hundreds of people expressed their solidarity with Afghanistan during an Afghan Lives Matter demonstration in Paris on Sunday. They called on Western countries to offer more support to those who are now living under Taliban rule. Demonstrators, including many Afghans, waved Afghan flags and signs, reading Afghans' welcome and chanted slogans in French and Dari. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has repeatedly said France is working to evacuate French nationals still in the country, as well as Afghans who work with Western organizations. 5 flights organized by the French government have evacuated hundreds of people so far. Now let's talk about our developing story. Let's take a look at the fresh COVID data released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, where 58.52 crore vaccine doses have been administered so far under the National Vaccination Drive. 25,072 new cases have been recorded in the last 24 hours, which is the lowest number in the last 160 days. And with this, the active cases now account for 1.03% of the total cases, which is the lowest since March 2020. India's active caseload stands at 3,33,924, which is the lowest in 155 days. Moving on to recoveries, recovery rate has increased to 97.63%, which is the highest since March 2020 as well. 44,157 recoveries have been recorded during the last 24 hours, increasing the total recoveries to 3,16,80,626. Also, weekly positivity rate, which currently stands at 1.91%, is less than 3% for the last 59 days, while daily positivity rate, which currently stands at 1.94%, is less than 3% for the last 28 days. Testing capacity has been substantially ramped up, with 50.75 crore tests conducted so far. But the situation remains worrisome in Kerala, where 10,402 new COVID positive cases were confirmed on Sunday. 25,586 COVID recoveries were also reported. The positivity rate is 16.41%. 66 deaths were also confirmed, taking the aggregate death toll to 19,494. 1,63,212 is the present active COVID caseload in the state. It's after the Eid and Onam celebrations the test positivity rate has peaked. Malappuram, Kozhikode, Thrissur and Ernakulam districts have reported maximum number of cases. Malappuram district has the most of COVID patients undergoing treatment. The review meeting will evaluate the number of hospital beds and treatment facilities in the state as well. So let me take you across for more on this to Ajay Joy, my colleague, to find out what is being done about these high numbers. Ajay, what can you tell me in terms of the efforts that are being made by the state administration and the government to ensure that these alarmingly high numbers, very high positivity rate, 16% plus in Kerala, is brought down?
Yes, Gautam. This particular number is reflective about the Onam festive days as well. If you see at the positivity rate, it's hovering around 16%. And if we look at the test number also, it has been going up. Test number has been going down significantly during these days because of the holidays, the labs being shut, etc. State used to conduct at least above 1.5 lakh tests per day 1 week before, but for the last 1 week, its average has been very low. For example, yesterday it was just 63,000 samples were taken for testing. So going forward, it is understood that the state is going to tighten the relaxations which were announced for the last few weeks. As you know, the Onam festive seasons are over by today. The most important 4 days of Onam are over by today. And it is expected that tomorrow on Tuesday, the state government is convening a review meeting to recalibrate its strategies for the next few weeks. Because the worrisome is, to put it in a context, if you compare it with the last year before Onam, the cases were around 2,000 last year. And just after Onam, towards October, it shot up to almost 10,000. Right now, the COVID cases itself is on a worrisome level, and what will be the effect of Onam, the festives and the gatherings, it's also said to be with COVID protocols, so we can't be sure about what was the real reality on the ground. So what we expect in the next few weeks will be quite something we should all be careful about. And experts point to a fact of having another peak in the first week of September or second week of September. That's what the health experts are opinion about. So going forward, definitely government will have to recalibrate its strategies. More restrictions are in the offing. That's what the feel is being sent by the health ministry and the officials here.
Well, certainly now that the festive period is over, and the court was also pretty annoyed by the kind of relaxations that have been given for the festive period, which lasted for, well, a good part of a month. Now more restrictions could be the only answer that could be feasible as far as getting these numbers down is concerned. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ajay Joy. Now, new COVID-19 lockdown relaxations have been announced by the Tamil Nadu government till the 6th of September. That came into effect today. Theatres reopened after being shut down for months with a cap of 50%. But owners have been asked to ensure that all staff has been jabbed. All shops have been allowed to operate for an extra hour till 10 p.m. IT-related organizations can function with 100% workforce. All beaches, zoos, boat houses have also been permitted to open for the public. Swimming pools and sports training arenas have been allowed to reopen with 50% occupancy. Bars and hotels and clubs can also function. The interstate government buses to Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka have also resumed services. Creches also permitted to resume functioning. The government has also announced that schools for students from classes 9 to 12 will reopen from the 1st of September with 50% capacity. A decision on resuming in-person classes for classes 1 to 8 will be taken up after the 15th of September based on the experience with the higher classes. Colleges can also resume physical classes from the 1st of September on a rotational basis with vaccinated teaching and non-teaching staff. So let me bring in Philip Matthew on this decision as well. Philip, just tell us what is the scenario right now with these relaxations. Are people now taking advantage of it, or are they still wary?
Well, it has to be said that the state government has been committed to ensuring that normal life is restored at the earliest, because the one thing that the authorities are convinced of is that economic activity must resume. People can't be subject to lockdowns for a lengthy periods of time, because apart from the impact it has physically and emotionally on residents, it also drastically affects economic activity. So that is the one area that the government has been focusing on. So towards that end, they've been very, very aggressively, trying to ensure that the vaccination campaign takes off. In fact, just yesterday, 24-hour vaccination centers have been opened in most of the major government hospitals. Private hospitals are also ramping up their vaccination drive. So the attempt is to ensure that as many people are vaccinated and that normal life can be restored at the earliest. The government believes that the cases over the last 10 to 15 days have been coming down gradually, and there are teams of health workers who are going around the city and the rural hinterlands trying to keep watch on the places of high activity, places like malls and places like public places where people gather, to ensure that these COVID protocol norms are being followed, and to ensure that people are suitably dressed up in masks and other safety, equipment. So basically, the idea is to ensure that COVID norms are followed, but to ensure that this is done in a manner that does not impact, economic activity or the normal life of citizens.
Certainly, and let's hope that things do stay the course and the numbers stay down and people remain cautious even while moving out and follow COVID protocols. Otherwise, the government may be forced to bring back those restrictions that have just been removed. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Philip Matthew. Now let's talk about what's happening in Goa, where the Goa government on Sunday announced extension of COVID-induced state-level curfew till the 30th of August till 7 a.m. The curfew was first imposed in May when cases came to a peak in the coastal state, which was then reeling under the second wave. It was extended on multiple occasions as well. According to the earlier order, the curfew was supposed to end on the 23rd of August. The state government has opened majority of activities in the state with several curbs, but the areas like casinos are yet to be opened. Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj S. Bommai and Education Minister B.S. Nagesh visited some educational institutions today when classes 9 to 12 reopened in districts with COVID positivity rate below 2%. The physical classes have been opened today after a gap of over 1.5 years. The Chief Minister had earlier said that all precautions are taken to ensure that COVID-19 virus does not spread during the opening exercise. He had informed that classrooms are being sanitized and teachers vaccinated. The classes will be held in batches on alternative days to ensure COVID protocol. Students and teachers have expressed happiness over the reopening of the schools from classes 9 to 12.
We are so happy because we could not interact with the lectures properly. Network issues was there, signal issues was there. In offline classes, we can interact with teachers.
The online class made us very difficult to attend the classes. We was not able to ask questions with our teachers. Today we got opportunity to attend live classes. So I thanks Honorable Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai sir.
We feel very happy because the students are coming after a long time. So students are my principals and staffs. So we are very happy to conduct the classes in offline.
India continues to aid neighbours in the need to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. Commander of the Sri Lankan Navy, Vice Admiral Nishant Ulugetene, made a personal request to Naval Chief of Staff in India, Admiral Karambir Singh, to assist in the prompt dispatch of medical-grade oxygen. As a result, a ship departed from Visakhapatnam port with freight of approximately 100 tons of oxygen on the 19th of August, arriving at Colombo harbour on the 22nd. In a separate development, Sri Lankan naval ship Shakti left for Chennai port from Tinkumali harbour on the 17th of August for a shipment of medical-grade oxygen. It's scheduled to arrive in Colombo on the 23rd, early in the morning tomorrow, with approximately 40 tons of liquid medical oxygen. Now let's move on to the National Prime segment. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar today met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Nitish Kumar led an 11-member delegation of 10 political parties from Bihar, including Vikashsheel Insan Party President Mukesh Sahni, RJD's Tejasvi Yadav, Hams Jitan Ram Majhi and other leaders. Speaking to media persons after the meeting, Nitish Kumar said that the PM heard what the delegation had to say about the caste-based census in the state.
सब लोगों ने जाति आधारित जनगणना के बारे में जो सब लोगों का एक मत है, हम सब लोगों का, पूरे बिहार के सभी पार्टियों का, तो उसी के बारे में उनको पूरी जानकारी, एक एक विषय और उसको डिटेल्स में कि कैसे 2019 में पास हुआ, 2020 में हुआ और किस तरह से हम लोग थे। तो हम लोगों को जितना इसके पक्ष में जो भी बात रखनी थी उतना हम लोगों ने कहा है। पीएम ने हम लोगों की बात पूरे तौर पर सुनी है, सब लोगों की बात सुनी।
Former Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister and former Rajasthan Governor Kalyan Singh's last rites being performed today on the banks of the river Ganga in Narora. The BJP veteran passed away at the age of 89 in Lucknow on Saturday. The late CM's son and Member of Parliament from Etah, Rajveer Singh, informed that chief ministers of several states and senior BJP leaders will also be present when the last rites are performed. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi also reached Lucknow to pay tributes. The PM said that Kalyan Singh's parents had named him Kalyan and he lived up to his name throughout his life. He also called for making maximum efforts by taking his values and resolutions to compensate for his loss.
कल्याण सिंह जी भारत के कोने कोने में एक विश्वास का नाम बन गए थे, एक प्रतिबद्ध निर्णयकर्ता का नाम बन चुके थे और जीवन के अधिकतम समय वे जन कल्याण को लिए हमेशा प्रयत्नरत रहे.
And Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath also announced a 3-day state mourning and holiday on the 23rd of August, while Uttarakhand government declared a 1-day state mourning on Sunday. BJP veteran Kalyan Singh passed away on Saturday due to sepsis and multi-organ failure at the age of 89 in Lucknow. Kalyan Singh lived for the welfare of the people throughout his life. He made public welfare his life mantra and dedicated his life for the bright future of the country. In the latest from Jammu and Kashmir, the Indian Army has rescued 23 youth who took the decision to shun violence and join the mainstream. They were forced to join hands with terrorists, and now in a press conference, Lieutenant General Yogesh Kumar Joshi said that they took the right decision to leave the gun and come back to their families.
Of these 23 individuals who are being forced and coerced to pick up the weapon and get into the cycle of violence and become a terrorist is a grim reminder of the fact that there are many amongst us who are still, because of their vested interests and agendas, forcing the youth of Kashmir to pick up a weapon and become a terrorist, which is very sad because they are destroying not only lives of the individuals but also the lives of their families and their loved ones.
Lieutenant General Joshi further said that the Indian Army will always give a chance to those who want to surrender and accept their mistake.
We want our youth to come back to the mainstream, and we always welcome them with the open arms. The Indian Army gives a lot of importance to observing human rights when conducting counter-terrorist operations. I want to send a message to the Awam that the Indian Army is there to give a second chance to any youth who accepts his mistakes and wants to surrender and come back to the mainstream.
Again, in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the BSF resorted to heavy firing with light machine gun after a suspected drone movement was noticed along the international border in Ania sector of Jammu this morning. In a statement, the BSF said that this morning about 5:30 am, a blinking red and yellow light in the sky was observed by forward troops in the Ania sector near the international border. Alert BSF troops immediately fired several LMG rounds on the flying object, due to which it gained some height and went towards the Pakistani side. The BSF further said that the entire area is being searched with the help of the police. And the nation is celebrating Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav to celebrate and commemorate 75 years of India's independence. And in this regard, Union Ministry of Information and Broadcasting will be launching a gamut of activities to celebrate Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav from Monday. The objective is to showcase the journey of New India and to celebrate the contribution of freedom fighters, including the unsung heroes of the freedom struggle, through massive outreach activities. More in this report.
By AIR network, including Thakur, speeches of freedom leaders, and Nishant, 75 landmark sites to be showcased. Aprajita, a program on women leaders. Special highlights and discussion programs of unsung heroes and freedom struggle. It will also show the day's importance during the freedom struggle as part of celebration of Amrit Mahotsav themes. To encourage the participation of people, it will also organize national and regional quizzes. DD Network will be broadcasting sectoral programs under Naya Bharat Ka Naya Safar. PIB will launch microsite on Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The Directorate of Publications Division will podcast series on books published by Division on India's freedom struggle and the revolutionaries. Division to also launch book on INA trials in 1945. Films Division will organize an online film festival and webinar on topics such as technological advancement in filmmaking. DFF is making efforts non-commercial screenings of films at various embassies. Various activities will also be organized to enthuse citizens' participation in the celebrations. The iconic week under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav will be a grand celebration by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, which will showcase the convergence of the values and glories of the freedom struggle of the past with the aspirations and dreams of a young, new and iconic India. Bureau Report, DD India.
Time now in Midday Prime to get you all the business and economy updates. For all the business and economy updates, we have Tanvi.
Thank you, Gautam. Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will launch the National Monetization Pipeline later today at New Delhi. The National Monetization Pipeline, NMP, comprises a 4-year pipeline of the central government's brownfield infrastructure assets. Besides providing visibility to investors, NMP will also serve as a medium-term roadmap for the asset monetization initiative of the government. The Union Budget 2021-22 laid a lot of emphasis on asset monetization as a means to raise innovative and alternative financing for infrastructure and included a number of key announcements, including an asset monetization dashboard to be created for tracking progress and to provide visibility to investors. The National Monetization Pipeline book will be released in the presence of Niti Aayog Vice Chairman Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Niti Aayog CEO Amitabh Kant and secretaries of relevant line ministries whose assets constitute the monetization pipeline. In her budget speech this year, the finance minister had announced launch of a national monetization pipeline of potential brownfield infrastructure assets, stating that monetizing operating public infrastructure assets is a very important financing option for new infrastructure construction. Moving on, Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur shared a video of a series of short films showcasing India's phenomenal reforms and rise across sectors related to ease of doing business. Doordarshan is releasing the series on how India's ease of doing business has made it an attractive investment destination. Have a look.
साथियों, अब हमें ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस की रैंकिंग में टॉप 50 में आने के लिए मिलकर के प्रयास करना ही है। अब हम जिला स्तर पर ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस से जुड़े सुधारों को लागू करने की तरफ बढ़ रहे हैं।
And now news about the stock markets. After a strong opening, the domestic stock markets later briefly lost some ground on Monday. After recovering, the Sensex at the BSE had gained 294 points or 0.5% to 55,623 a short while ago. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had added 71 points or 0.4% to 16,521. But the broader market has again taken a hit, with the BSE mid-cap index losing 0.5% and the small-cap index slumping 1.1%. The top index gainers are HCL, Tech, TCS, Bajaj Finserv and Bajaj Finance, with gains of between 2% and 4.1%. The top index losers so far are Power Grid Corporation, Ultratech Cement and Mahindra, with losses of between 1.2 and 1.4%. So with that, it's a wrap on our segment Business Prime. Back to you, Gautam.
Thank you, Tanvi, and that's all we have for the moment as far as Midday Prime is also concerned, but we'll keep tracking all the big developments, especially that are coming in from Afghanistan as far as the evacuations of various nationals are concerned from Kabul International Airport. Stay tuned.